Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in today to talk about Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 22-23 of 2025. And honestly, I can't believe we are already here. It honestly feels like this year of Shonen Jump, and also just this year in general has just absolutely flown by. We are already on issue number 22-23, of course, the combined Golden Week issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, and it honestly just feels so unreal. Granted, it's not been that long since I've actually been caught up on Weekly Shonen Jump and have been reading the chapters on Sunday. It's just a thing of, I get a little bit behind, I get caught up, I still read the chapters during the week before the next one comes out, but it's I haven't been reading Shonen Jump like I was back in 2021 and 2022, where it was hey, every Sunday the second chapters came out, I was there at my computer reading them. I'm recording this video on a Tuesday, so sort of just breaking the immersion after whenever this video gets posted. I don't know if this will be today's video, or if the Witch Watch episode 4 review is going to be going up today, just a little bit of dating this video also, right? But because of that, I really don't know what my whole schedule is, so I just actually finished reading some of these chapters here just a few minutes ago, so it's one of those things where it's yes, I did read, Kagurabachi. Honestly, I think I read up the Star of Beethoven. I think I read Nice Prison 2 all on Sunday, and then Hima-Ten and the rest of these have been read all on Tuesday. Let me get my dates right. So it's a little bit of the thing where, I haven't read Weekly Shonen Jump as I used to, all in, one massive little moment, but either way, we have a really interesting issue of Weekly Shonen Jump to talk about this week, because I really feel like this wasn't the strongest issue I have ever read. Definitely, there were some things that were hey, I really like that. Of course, what are we talking about? We were talking about 14? Yeah, we're talking about 14 series today, and I think we had some really good 14 series, but a few of them were really good, and a few of them were also I don't particularly know how I feel about this, but as normal, it seems like this is an issue that's going to be building up to a lot more high-octane stuff happening in the future. Of course, I've talked about this plenty of times, but in the manga industry, especially the very competitive manga industry of Weekly Shonen Jump right now, we've got to have these chapters where it's we have to have the build-up for even a little bit of payoff, even if that payoff comes in 1 or 2 chapters, right? But really, without any further ado, I just want to go and talk about all of these 14 chapters we talked about in Weekly Shonen Jump, and if you guys don't know how this video series works, it's actually pretty simple. Pretty much, I'm going to be going through rambling about all of these chapters, and then once we get done with that, I'll be ranking them from what I thought was the best chapter of the week all the way down to the worst chapter of the week over here on the side, and look, that I'll be picking out my favorite character of the week too. So what character I was man, I thought you did something pretty cool this week, right? But yeah, really without any further ado, I just say let's go and hop into it and start with Kagurabachi. Of course, this is Kagurabachi chapter number 77, and hey, Kagurabachi did have the lead color page of Weekly Shonen Jump this week. It did not have the magazine cover because, of course, hey, combined issue, all of these series are represented on the cover, and I actually, should mention the cover real quick. The cover was this really cool thing of, all the Weekly Shonen Jump characters in, this sort of, quote-unquote gamer attire, I guess I should say, where it, had all of these, various things on, and headphones, controllers in their hands, and a lot of, so I think mainly, let me just open up the banner image real quick here, let me go over to Viz, and then go to Weekly Shonen Jump here. Yeah, as you can see on screen right now, it's very simple. It's hey, the top 6 series are the ones that they want to sort of broadcast in a magazine, which of course we see as One Piece, Witch Watch, Ichi the Witch, Sakamoto, Days, Blue Box, and Kagurabachi all had these bigger things happening here, and then there's a lot of little pixel art of all of the other characters all the way around here, and of course hey, the ones up towards the front of the thing are doing a whole lot better than the ones on the back. Embers, I am really sad, I want you to succeed, and hey, Nice Prison, at least you're all the way back there. You know what I'm saying, right? And also, I have to be real, it is very interesting to see, how good Nue's Exorcist is doing. I have not thought about that series much since I, initially read, those first 20 or so chapters before I dropped it, but, this series is still, consistently doing as well. Gakuro, I think, is that main character's name. He is as big as, even if not a bit bigger than, Chihiro and Chinatsu and Yodaka from, I think that's, the series I don't cover. I think that's Shinobi Undercover right there, right? But either way, with all of that out of the way, Kagurabachi. So this chapter of Kagurabachi is all about pretty much Chihiro, Samura, and Hirohiko all sort of going through clashing blades with each other, and it's really all framed around the idea of we meet this painter named Kanario Yoshida, and we pretty much understand that he fought in the war and saw Samura use the power of Suzaku, which is sort of the same power as a phoenix of being rebirthed from the flames, pretty much, right? So we see Hirohiko, Samura, and Chihiro all go through and fight each other. Eventually, Hirohiko uses their play ability to pretty much play with the entire building of the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel, going through it and pretty much just ruining it here in the moment, also playing with a lot of the other corpses that then go over and then start to chase after Samura, right? Well, Samura pretty much escapes out of the building and uses his power of Suzaku coming through, and we learn what Samura's true realm with his enchanted blade is, as we pretty much understand, like, hey, wow, Samura, all of the flames that you can produce from Suzaku can also heal up everything around you. As you sort of get the whole idea of, like, hey, this painter named Konryu ended up getting their arm cut off in the Seitai War, and Samura was able to go through and heal it pretty much up for him, right? And it's this really cool moment as we see Samura coming up from behind the sky and going all the way down and using his flames to completely repair the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel. It is a extremely cool visual, also going through and cutting off Hirohiko's arm. It is just like, man, such a good chapter of Kagurabachi, and I know I sort of blazed through it there, but if you want to hear my full thoughts on this chapter in like a 28 or so minute video, I do have a video up on the channel. It's called Samura, or Suzaku, the Power of a Pacifist, up on the channel, so go check that out. I may have that Kagurabachi chapter review playlist linked down in the description down below, so go check that out, or just go to the channel Glowplasma, at Glowplasma on YouTube, and you could just watch that video there. I think it's a pretty good one, right? But overall, this was a very good chapter of Kagurabachi, and I just loved seeing all of our characters go through and do all of their things. But yeah, Kagurabachi was a good chapter for sure. One Piece is up next, and this was very much of a One Piece chapter. It's like, hey, everything is finally coming to a head here as we understand what the main idea of this whole arc is really going to be. As like, hey, Somers, Gunko, and Killingham are sort of all scattered around all the various parts of Elbaf and are all pretty much communicating with each other about what their next plan of action is, as we pretty much understand, like, hey, Gunko ended up getting all of the other Straw Hats with each other and sort of like tying all of them up. We see, like, Jinbei, Nami, Chopper, and Brook are all sort of, like, huddled up here together, right? It's like, or no, Chopper is with Robin, if I'm not mistaken. But Brook, Jinbei, Usopp, and Nami are all sort of, like, tied up together. It's like, oh no, they're not too good, right? And I really love the moment when Gunko comes over to Brook and just says, like, hey, come over here, right? Pretty much, like, puts a foot on Brook's head and just says, like, hey, listen up, you. I want you to write songs for me for the rest of your life. You're going to be my slave. And we see everybody's like, whoa, you know about Brook's music? Like, it's so absolutely crazy, right? As eventually Brook just says, like, hey, I'm quite sorry, young lady, but from the day that Captain Straw Hat Luffy bestowed me in my second life, I've been dedicated to no one but him. And Gunko's like, hey, what would you say if I would have killed you, right? And Brook's like, hey, I would rather die than live without honor, right? Goko comes through and pretty much just, like, kicks him in the head. And really the rest of the chapter now is pretty much Somers going around and using one of the transponder snails, pretty much hacking into all over Elbaf, and pretty much making a loud announcement all over Elbaf, pretty much saying, like, hey, check, can you hear me, Elbaf? Come in, warriors of Elbaf. I'm sure you're all busy scrambling to deal with the strange events unfolding around you. That was our doing. I am a dagger sent from Sacred Mary Joa. I am Somers of the Holy Knights, right? We just see, like, everybody around and he's like, oh no, what is all this going on here, right? And Somers just continues saying, like, hey, as I'm sure you've realized all over Elbaf, we have taken 10 of your children as hostages. On top of that, we have reduced an orange-bearded man to a bloody mess for the crime of pursuing us from the school and attempt to free all of the various children, right? It's like, hey, in other words, while you guys bitterly assumed that someone else was going to be rescuing the children for you, the children have continued to march towards our goal. Right, we also see what all the children are currently up to. They don't know what's going on as they all wake up from their slumber that Killingham put them in, pretty much. And Colin has been awake this entire time and just says, like, hey guys, we've got big deals going on here. Like, we're being kidnapped, and all the kids are like, I don't know what you're talking about. But Colin is pretty much trying to rally all of them up together and really trying to be the big savior in all of this, and all this stuff, pretty much, right? We see another one of the nightmare creatures is going, or the what I'm afraid of creatures is coming over, and we see that one of these creatures ends up being two of the giant children's moms. And hey, look, all the giant pirates are also scared of them. Haha, it takes down their entire ship pretty much. So all of the old giant pirates are no longer part of this anymore, right? As Somers continues this thing, just saying, like, hey, look at that giant pirate ship has crashed. So much for all of their bluster. Now, Beard Hill drool, warrior of legend, it's time for us to talk, right? And we see Jiroller's just like, oh, do you mean Dorian Broggy's down, right? But Summer's like, hey, with no king on the throne, you are the boss around here, right? He's like, hey, our goal here is quite simple. To make you giant slaves in battle. The next step is to find out how effective these kids will be as hostages. I bet you're all wondering whose kids our 10 hostages are, aren't you, right? And he just, like, sort of, like, calls up all the names. First up, Yolva. Next, Scalidi, Olav, Karin, Mag, Rhonda, Bint, Johanna, Bjorn. That makes 9 just now, but hoping to save his friends, a little warrior named Colin showed up to join the group, so that makes 10. Now our commands. Heed them closely, Elbath. Your school is completely useless in war, and your library packed full of pointless records of the past. You will burn them down right now and swear fealty to us. If you do not, we will eliminate the brats one at a time. You have to make the call, Chief Jirol. As we see, Somers has made all of these demands, and pretty much one of the art teachers just says, like, hey, the school is a symbol of Elbath's current state of peace, so, like, all of these books and records are, like, too important to be burnt down here. As pretty much we see 2 people are coming and going to stop all of this from happening, and it is Mr. Ya, of course, Colin's father, and Robin, one of the last survivors of Ohara, who seem to be wanting to do a sort of bigger deal here. And that's where we end off this chapter of One Piece, is on this pretty cool note of just seeing, like, Robin and Mr. Ya both fired up, like, hey, I won't let them do it. It's honestly a pretty cool moment that we see here, and yeah, One Piece had a very good chapter this week. Like, it wasn't the most interesting thing ever, but I still liked it for what it was, right? Ichi the Witch is up next, and what a fun and awesome chapter it is, right? We start off with Ichi, who just, like, came down and pretty much punched the Joyous Sorrows magic into the ground, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, it took me longer than I expected to lose the crowd back there, right? He also explains, like, hey, Kumagi is also currently drawing away the crowd right now, pretty much riding on Uruwashi, going around and, like, escaping all of the various devotees and citizens of the Isle of Bakugami, right? And Ichi also just comes down and says, like, hey, Gokuraku, and, like, hey, I saw this as coming down, but really nice punch. And he comes down, and, like, him and Gokuraku have this moment where they just, like, put both their fists together, like, doing the whole, like, bro, like, buddy sort of thing, right? We see that Gokuraku's arms are also a little bit damaged, and pretty much we understand going over 50% for him isn't the best thing ever, right? Well, the Joyous Sorrows magic also sort of, like, gets up in this moment and sort of comes through and starts to attack Ichi, right? Ichi's like, oh, what is all this bloodlust here, right? As the Joyous Sorrows magic just says, like, oh, you too? Why? You smell like them. Like Lord World Hater, right? Pretty much going through all of this very stuff. He says, like, hey, and the sin's way thicker than all that dumb witch back there. It's almost as if you got their blood on you. How'd that happen? Tell me, how is this possible, human, right? And Ichi pretty much just, like, sort of goes through all of this, right? And Fuji just says, like, oh, I'm Ichi, I'm a witch, and the world hater, right? I froze it in ice and stabbed it in the neck with a stake. And the Joyous Sorrows magic is just like, no, I'll kill you, right? Coming through, but Gokuraku goes in and punches this guy one more time. But we see the Joyous Sorrows magic uses an ability called Misery's Mask, and pretty much creates a little bit of a shield that Gokuraku isn't able to fully go and punch through, right? As pretty much the Joyous Sorrows magic explains, like, hey, I didn't really want to do this, but this ability is powered by sorrow. Using it means I have to use some of... Using it means I have to use up some of what I've accumulated, right? It's like, hey, but I don't care anymore. I am going to make you suffer, and then I am going to kill you, right? Ichi and Gokuraku pretty much team up to do a bunch of their various attacks. Pretty much, Ichi's using Inazori, Urawashi, pretty much, and Gokuraku's using his synchro rates, simple kicks, and simple punches, and all that sort of various stuff. Until we see that Joyous Sorrows magic uses a Sorrows Spear, right? Pretty much talks about Ichi like, oh, you could actually use magic. That's pretty crazy, right? But we see as Gokuraku goes through, he has punched his fist into it, right? And what he sees is he sees his sister, Richia, standing in front of the Joyous Sorrows magic and just saying like, no, please don't hit him, right? And of course, Gokuraku is pretty much having this affecting his mind from the Joyous Sorrows magic. And pretty much we just see all this going on here. And the Joyce Stars Magic just talking to Richia, going back and forth here, as eventually Gokuraku's like, no, don't do it, right? I said stop it. Shut your mouth, you bastard Magic. He goes through and he fires off a massive punch. But in the moment, we see it's being fired towards Ichi, right? As we see that Gokuraku, it's pretty much his mind is being corrupted by all of this, right? As the Joyce of Stars Magic just says like, hey, he's like, hey, and so the pitiful sacrifice, challenger, is drawn into their nightmare. All those who are given my sorrow are shown visions, nightmares which drive them to insanity. Some break down and cry, and some attempt to take their lives. And some lose their minds to rage. Now, let the show begin. Ichi the Witch. As we see, Gokuraku is pretty much going into a berserker state pretty much, and Ichi is going to have to fight off Gokuraku in this moment. Honestly, an amazing chapter of Ichi the Witch, and I honestly can't wait till we get with some next week. Oh wait, it's going to be 2 weeks till we get more Ichi the Witch. Really good chapter for sure. Kill Blue was fairly simple, all things considered. We see the student council is talking with each other, and hey, they're getting ready to have a meeting. But of course, the guy who we met last time, oh gosh, why do I not remember his name this second? Oh geez, let me go find it real quick. I found it. His name is Iori. But we see like he's the leader of the Divination Club talking with Ogami here in a moment. And the two of them are pretty much having a chat as he's like, hey, I've been wrong before, but like you say you're a hitman, but it also looks like you're all this other various stuff, like were you ever a hired killer? It also says that you are divorced with one child, all of this various stuff. And Ogami's like, no, you can't be right, when it's actually very shockingly accurate, right? And pretty much he's just like, hey, well, this is embarrassing. I've been wrong, but never this wrong before. This reading just doesn't make any sense, right? Pretty much he just explains all these things that are very true about Ogami, and he even asks like, hey, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to do a more detailed questionnaire with you, pretty much, right? As in this moment, we see that Subaru Ichijo walks in. He is the leader of the student council, who's pretty much come to fetch Iori here in this moment, right? So Iori's just like, oh no, this isn't very good, right? But pretty much Ogami just goes through and notices that he doesn't feel anything really impressive exuding off of Subaru, right? And he's like, oh, this is pretty interesting, right? Like, I don't really feel anything off him like I do all the other unicorns who are at this school, right? As you pretty much just can look at all the R1s who we've been involved with in the story so far, right? Well, Ogami pretty much just says like, hey, I'd like to, challenge you, would you mind accepting? And we see that Subaru actually decides to do it, right? Pretty much there's this whole thing that we learn about like, hey, Subaru, while being a man for the people, isn't particularly good at any one thing, and he almost always loses all of these competitions, right? And the very end of the chapter is Subaru walking back into the student council, right? And everybody's like, oh, hey, welcome back. We see the bigger female member just is like, hey, you went head-to-head against Juzo Ogami, didn't you? And he's like, oh yeah, I pretty much definitely lost that, right? And pretty much the whole other part of this is just this girl just saying like, hey, would it have killed you to consider the timing? Monday is the day we have to go to the home ec club, but don't you get that? And they're like, oh, so it's Zelda. Yes, all 4 of us agreed earlier. You don't object, do you? And he's like, no. And like, hey, we're doing all this various stuff. I'm like, hey, oh, look at that. Down there, it's Norin Mitsuoka, the source of all of these Mitsuoka challenges. We've decided she needs to be monitored more carefully, so first thing next week, we will be shutting down the Home Ec Club. Dun dun da 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 da. So next week will be the 100th chapter of Kill Blue, and it's also a little bit of an interesting thing, like, hey, Ogami was supposed to be the one to sort of inherit the club next for Norin's sake and for, like, the sake of the rest of the club. So, like, hey, it's not very good, it's being shut down. But isn't, like, home ec something that almost every high school student has to go and sort of, like, take stuff in that sort of, like, realm at some point? So it sort of seems like, why are they just shutting down this club? It sort of seems like it'd be better just, like, do something else and just, like, go out first and just absolutely shut it down. But it's Manga World. Who knows what I'm talking about, right? Sidcraft, Love is a Mystery is up next. And again, this is a whole chapter pretty much about like, hey, this whole Zero Craft pretty much stuff going on. Eventually we see that Sid and Lulu pretty much end up meeting this person who's sort of the ringleader of all this various stuff going around here. And we see that he is working with Zero Craft and that he calls himself X-Craft pretty much, right? And he pretty much jumps off the side of a building after Lulu and Sid find him pretty much. And Sid's like, oh no, this is crazy, right? Well, Lulu goes through, saves all the children, but oh no, the building starts to catch on fire. And Sid pretty much is like, this isn't very good, and like, over there, there's a lift. Only problem is, it's only hand cranked. Somebody has to stay up here to do it. Lulu, you go down to follow the children. I'll find a way down also, because we obviously know that X-Craft didn't like jump off the building and kill himself, so there's a way out of this building for sure, right? So Sid does that, Lulu goes down the thing, and she's like, oh no, Sid, this isn't good, right? And Sid's just like, hey, I'll save the kids, I'll save you, and I will make it out alive. That is my choice, right? Sid eventually gets done with all that and is trying to make it down the building, but it doesn't seem like he's got enough sort of room to be able to do it. As he tries to go into the building, oh no, fire starts to happen, and this isn't looking good for Sid. And Sid sort of just thinks like, hey, I can't do it after all. I tried acting cool again. The kids aside, I risked my life to save somebody who's supposed to be my foe. I sure am a fool. I couldn't treat her like a stranger if I didn't save her. And he's like, hey, then I'm sure I would have regretted it. And that's why as we see that Sid lets go of his sort of like makeshift rope and starts to fall all the way down to the bottom, Lulu jumps out on the windows, pretty much goes and says like, Mr. Detective, pretty much like grabs him in her arms and pretty much just sort of pulls him up to safety, right? And Sid's like, oh, why are you doing all this? Like, you're almost trying to commit suicide doing all this, right? But she's like, hey, it's because I wanted to make my own decision. I've always lived with being a phantom thief as my only option, never once questioning it, living solely for the sake of someone else. I'm fed up with that way of life. And Lid's like, oh, does that mean, like, you're leaving the phantom thief life behind? And she's like, no. At this very moment, for the first time, I have something I must steal for myself. Of course, talking about Sid, as we see that the Phantom Thief leans in and gives Sid a kiss on the lips. So Fway and Elio are able to see this just in time and are both freaking out in their totality, right? And Lulu's just like, it's like, hey, this is my choice. Like, hey, one day, I swear, I'll steal your heart. As we see that she leaps off and leaves into night, and Sid's like, oh no, what just happened, right? And that is where we end this chapter of Sidcraft, Love is a Mystery. I like Lulu, so I thought this was a fine enough chapter, but even still, I just wasn't the whole biggest fan of like, hey, X-Craft is here now. It really just was like a bunch of things being thrown together to try to save this series from cancellation. We'll have to see how the next few goes, but this wasn't one of my favorite chapters of Sidcraft by far, right? So next up is Embers, and again, like normally I've been really enjoying Embers recently, but this wasn't a chapter that I really enjoyed really whatsoever, right? Pretty much the beginning of this chapter is being introduced to a guy named Ayamu Keita, who is the greatest dribbler, or so what he calls himself, right? Pretty much he's like, hey, look at that. Next up, we're going to be facing against, oh, what is this team called? Kosei? Oh, they're like eternally number 2. Either way, we'll kick them into number 3, and it'll be a good warm-up game for our game against Kurobayashi whenever we go to beat them, pretty much, right? Showing this guy has a really, really big head, right? Well, eventually he goes through and just says, like, hey, they're clinging to nothing but a bygone glory. Like, hey, top 8 is as far as we're letting them go. Oh no, Haitani is so strong and Kosei is that they just absolutely defeat this school of Ryukon and this so-called greatest dribbler guy, pretty much, right? After all this, it's sort of like, hey, it looks like we're going to be going up against Kurobayashi pretty soon, and Haitani doesn't seem to be very excited about this, and he's like, oh no, win this one, and our next game's against Kurobayashi. I don't really like how all this is looking, right? He remembers to use Nerima pretty much like making him drop the Rubik's Cube out of his hand, right? We then see that the next day that Hikage and one of the other really important people on the team are going to a Kurobayashi game versus another school called Hamazaki, right? And pretty much Hikage's like, hey, we need to be tracking down everything they are doing here. And I figured I brought you along because I think you know about what's more important than I would. Because I just write everything down. You pretty much know how to pretty much control it all, pretty much, right? we see that Kurobayashi is playing the game of possession soccer, pretty much, where they're trying to control and tactically operate on everything moving down on the field down below, and really, it's insane that they're this good at it in just 2 months. It really looks like Oshimi-sensei is doing a lot for the team, pretty much, right? As we see that Nerima is also out in the field doing all of this, and Oshimi looks at a few of Nerima's moves and just is like, oh no, this is bad. I'm going to lose. And one of the Kurobayashi teammates just says like, what are you talking about? We're going to win this game. And he says like, oh no, that's what I'm talking about. I mean my little game with him. As we see what's been going on here is that he pretty much told Nerima to like, hey, we want to try like to go hard starting tomorrow, and like, hey, what's better than like just like twiddling your thumbs all game than actually trying? Like, hey, if you win, I'll let you come out of the game and you can even start the next one on the bitch, pretty much, right? It's a simple game, really. In the first 15 minutes, I want you to score a goal with your right leg, a header, and your left leg, pretty much, right? As we see that in 12 minutes, Nerima was able to go through and successfully do all of this, leaves pretty much the soccer field, and Oshimi just is like, hey, I guess that game was a little too simple for you then, and he's like, yeah, it did help save off boredom for a little while, though, right? As Oshimi-sensei just is like, hey, say Nerima, this is just what if, but mind you, do you think you'd have a little fun if you got to play somebody better than you? And Nerima's like, someone better than me? No one is better than me. As we then look and see, oh, look at that. Haitani is playing their soccer game to get them into the semifinals with Kurobayashi. And like, oh no, Haitani may be better than Nerima. We don't quite know. Gosh, this is a chapter that really suffered from the fact of, hey, we had to skip a few games here because, like, this series just simply isn't doing good enough to buy Chapter 30, have this bigger, longer match with Kosei, and it's like, hey, we're having to deal with all this smaller stuff in Chapter 13, pretty much, right? Did I enjoy this chapter? Yes, I thought it was fun. I like seeing Yuzu and Nerima do all of his various stuff, but I just know that it could have been so much better. You know what I'm saying here, right? But with all that out of the way, next up is Star of Beethoven. Good ol' S.O.B. And this was a chapter pretty much all about, so pretty much going through and really realizing that he may not be as good as he was, and maybe he just doesn't have the pure fire in him to go through and do all of this, right? We see that Claude Sakami is playing on the piano, and Aigu, who we got introduced to chapters ago, pretty much comes in and just is like, hey, what are you doing in here? Like, aren't you the shining student model representative, Mr. Sakami? And he's like, oh, Miss Agu, what are you doing here? And pretty much she just says like, hey, you are just now playing Beethoven's Tempest, was it? That's the piece you played when you demolished Yasuo at the competition 2 years ago. You're just trying to have the Rirero Festival end up as a rematch between the two of you, right? And Sakami's like, hey, did you hear me? I want you to be gone from here. At the Rirero Festival, I have nothing in any interest other than Yasuo's public execution. And she's like, hey, grudges are truly an ugly thing, although I am one to talk, right? She leaves in this moment. We then see that Lexi and Marcia, of course, our two, like, secret detective agent characters, are walking around the area of Japan, and they have a few of these moments where they're just walking around, and they end up crashing into a few of these, like, a little bit of a thug guys. One of these guys knocks out some noodles out of one of Lexi's hands or whatever, I think he bumps into Lexi, and then it accidentally drops his cans of noodles on him, pretty much. And Lexi isn't very happy about this and pretty much goes through and beats one of these guys up very, very massively, pretty much explaining like, hey, we need to be going and do something else, and Marcia ends up stopping him in this moment. She's like, hey, as you know, we don't have much in the way of clues to go on, so we need to sort of like keep our reputation here decent enough, pretty much, right? Well, Yasuo is just sitting on a park bench somewhere, and he's just thinking like, damn it, I can't sleep, I don't have anywhere to go, and now it's morning already. As he's just thinking like, hey, this isn't good, my head's swimming, I haven't got any sleep since that amusement park. And he's just like, hey, I should find a karaoke place or a room or some cafe or whatever to crash into. He's like, hey, but I don't have any money or really the energy to move right now, right? As we see, of course, he's sitting on a park bench, and then up from behind him, hops up onto the park bench, is none other than Amano, who is Ichiro's friend. And pretty much she's just up here and she's like, hey, yo, what's a guy like you doing in a place like this? Yes, so. And he's like, oh, Amano, what are you doing here, right? And he pretty much explains all of this, and she's like, oh, so let me get this straight. So you were playing the piano again, which was great, but then your mentor told you that if you want to improve, you've got to abandon the style of playing that you respect, and you're all mopey about it now. And he's like, yeah, you're enjoying this, but I will be honest with you, I am, right? And she's like, haha, well, I am enjoying this too, right? But eventually she just says, like, hey, I mean, how could I not love it? I love it when you look dead inside. She's like, oh, what the hell? When people are super motivated, they don't pay attention to anything or anything anyone around them. And she's like, oh, isn't that right? But she's like, hey, yes so. And she's like, huh? And she just says, like, hey, as a fan of yours, when we met in high school, I told you my secret, did I not? May I repeat the request that I made of you at that time? There's a piece of music I want you to play for me. As we see that she pretty much stands here and does the typical Japanese idol thing of holding her two fingers pretty much, or what is that, her pointer finger and her middle finger out in like a V and like holding it up over her eye pretty much, right? And we also see in the background behind her, there's an image that pretty much just says like, hey, floating diva, as we see a girl that looks very, very similar to Amano pulling the exact same pose. So presumably she is an idol and she wants Ichiro to pretty much play one of her idol songs for her pretty much. I'm a little interested to see where this is going to go and how Ichiro is going to be feeling better after this and is going to be willing to go and talk with Beethoven, but it's just really interesting, and I honestly did like the slower paced chapter going through, seeing all of this. I wasn't really the biggest fan of like all the Agu stuff and Claude stuff in the beginning of the chapter, but I am just really interested in like what Amano's whole deal is and like how she like is really gotten along with Ichiro, because I didn't really mention it, but she calls him Mr. Yasuo the entire time. So like, is she older than him or younger than him? I really just don't know, and I'm just interested to find out all this other various stuff. And to be honest with you, I am pretty interested for next chapter of Star of Beethoven. So let's just move it over here. Nice Prison is the next chapter, and it was this whole chapter about like, hey, we've got these 4 guys who are like the biggest, baddest people in this prison cell. Oh no, 2 of them get taken out in this chapter, and one of them was already dead. Oh yeah, don't you love making jokes about deaths happening in prisons due to old age and all of that? Yeah, that's, oh man, so funny. I'm rolling in my coffin over that one, right? It's pretty much like, hey, they're having this festival. I don't even want to describe this chapter. It wasn't funny. There's nothing I can say that make it sound more entertaining than it really was. It's going to be my worst chapter of the week. I will read next chapter out of the obligation of I read 3 chapters of every new series, but unless next chapter has this big, like, crazy emotional catharsis for me, I'm not checking it out. I legitimately have no reason to, right? But again, of course, we also had a color page for this chapter. Just need to point that out. And also, another interesting thing about Nice Prison is in the back of Weekly Shonen Jump, we are seeing that every week it is getting 2 of the 4 column panel manga things every week, pretty much, right? So it's just like, this week we had 2 of them, and honestly, I found them more entertaining than the general chapter itself, as it's just these, like, 2 4 panel strips, pretty much. One was called Cheating, pretty much a guy's writing down some notes on his thing, pretty much pulls back his mask to take a look at him, and they're like, hey, show me your mask, you're cheating, aren't you? And on his mask it just says like, hey, good luck on your test, I'm always cheering you on, love Mom. And he's like, and the guy teacher's like, oh, my bad about this, right? And then on the next part below it, oh, and P.S. the quadratic formula is, ha ha ha, it's so funny, right? And he's like, oh no, you are cheating. And the other one is all about this guy dropping a rice ball into a hole, and he's like, oh no, my rice bowl. He hears somebody eating it, so he pours cement in it. It's more funny than the chapter we genuinely got at hand. If it was just a 4-panel theater that was Nice Prison, I probably would enjoy this series a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? But next up is Hima-Ten, and really this chapter is all about getting us introduced to a new character. And I really hope that this character becomes part of the main cast, but also not part of the general harem. Of course, that's what this manga is. We have to remember, we are reading a harem manga. But pretty much this entire chapter is about getting introduced to Sumire Terasaka, right? Right, it's Terasaka. Yes, I always want to say Terasaka because there's a character called Terasaka in Assassination Classroom, but no, it is Terasaka, right? We've pretty much learned that she is on the running club and that she's pretty much like a big stickler for everything, and like she just tells a bunch of people like, hey, be quiet, you dummies, like we don't want all of the people telling us about all of this, right? So pretty much we just see that Himari's like, oh man, she's like really cool. I want to sort of become friends with her, right? As pretty much we get the understanding that Himari and I almost called her Terasaka were friends when they were ever like 3 years old or something, whenever they were really, really young, right? And Himari just is like, hey, pretty much whenever I got the cat motto, there's this whole idea of like, hey, look at this, my mom told me she got it from one of her friends, and like she has a daughter who I was friends with back in the day who goes to my school, and I am pretty sure it is Terasaka here, right? And Imori's like, oh yeah, I mean, I know her, I was in her class last year pretty much, right? And eventually she just says like, hey, can you talk with Terasaka for me so we can like become friends or something like that? So Iamori's like, are you sure I've got to be here? And she's like, hey, I don't know her, though. Like, and you used to be in her class. Can't you help a girl out, right? And Iamori's like, come on. It's not like I know her that well either, right? But he pretty much walks up and is like, hey, Terasaka. And she's like, oh, hey, Tanichi, what's up, pretty much, right? Which I found a little interesting that she calls him, of course, oh gosh, Iamori, which, of course, Iamori is his last name, Tanichi is his first name, that she ends up calling him by his first name when he's calling her by her last name. A little bit of an interesting thing here, right? But pretty much he's like, hey, Yoshino here wanted to say thank you for her cat, pretty much, right? And she's like, hey, I heard all this stuff from my mom, like, it's pretty cool, right? She said we were friends back then, you know that? And she's like, hey, also, I named a kitten Maru, thank you for giving him to me, right? And Terasaka just has this little bit of an expression. I don't know why I couldn't remember the words there on her face. She's like, hey, it is just simply whatever. And both of them are like, oh, what are you talking about, right? And pretty much she says like, hey, I mean, you're famous. And I mean, I heard we were friends, but it's not like I remember anything from that far back. We were so little. And it wasn't because I wasn't involved in a kitten, because I have been too busy with track. So no need to thank me for any of this, right? And eventually she's just like, okay, right? And Terasaka just is like, hey, well, the teacher will get mad if we attract too much attention. Sorry, but are we done pretty much? And she's like, yeah, I am. And Himari and Iamori walk away. And Himari isn't really happy about any of this various stuff going on, right? And she just says like, hey, I honestly thought that we could be friends and I could talk for about all sorts of stuff, right? Well, we cut to later as, I want to call him Ichiro, it's not his name, is Iamori, as Iamori is our Tanichi Iamori, the main character of this series, as we see that he is walking to work, pretty much, to go to Himari's, to go and do all of the various cleaning, right? And he's like, hey, I've honestly never seen Yoshino that sad before. He just thinks like, hey, but she's right. Terasaka's pretty direct, but she is pretty nice, right? And she's like, hey, even though Terasaka did seem pretty cold to Yoshino, right? He's like, hey, it's all fine. I'll make one of Yoshino's favorites to dinner and it'll maybe cheer her up, right? As he pretty much like looks behind him and he seems to be noticing, he's like, oh, was that somebody who was following me? And we pretty much, he's like, oh, wait. I feel like I'm being followed, but I'm on the way to Yoshino's house, so, like, why? As he also just thinks about the whole idea of, like, hey, some famous high school girl has this guy coming over to her house, pretty much, and Iamori's a little concerned about all of this, right? Like, oh no, this teen romance, as he pretty much runs around a corner, and the stalker pretty much ends up following him, right? And as she rounds the corner, pretty much Iamori puts his hands out and grabs him, and oh no, he squishes somebody's chest, right? And he's like, hey, what do you want? And we see that it is none other than Terasaka, right? And Iamori's like, hey, what are you doing around here? And like, why are you following me? And like, also, why are you dressed in that? We see that she's got a mask on pretty much, and that she also has like glasses on and like just this hoodie over her pretty much. And she's like, oh, hey, it's my club tracksuit. I gotta take it off because it's so hot. Like the sunglasses are from a convenience store pretty much, right? And she's like, hey, and you don't live around here, so what are you doing around here, Iamori? And he's like, hey, I'm going to work. And she's like, no, you're a liar. I know that you're stalking Yoshino. You're a sick person, Tanichi, right? And she's like, hey, I know you're headed off to Yoshino's house. And Iamori's like, big misunderstanding, you have it all wrong. And Terasaka is just really not listening to him pretty much at all. She's like, hey, I know she lives in the condos right over there, and I know that you've always had your eye on Yoshino, right? And pretty much we also see that, like, she took some pictures on the camping trip of Iamori and Himari pretty much walking around together, and especially whenever Iamori was giving her a piggyback ride. And he's like, I don't think that's legal to be taking pictures of us like that. But she's like, hey, either way, it doesn't matter if you're in love with her. You can't track down where she lives pretty much, right? And Iamori's like, misunderstanding, please, you got it all wrong, right? but he's pretty much like, hey, were you always this way? Like, I thought only thing you cared about was track, right? And he's like, hey, why are you watching us, right? She's like, hey, I'll tell you my secret first, but will you agree to confess all of your crimes? And Ymor's like, your secret? What are you talking about? As we see that Terasaka goes into her back pocket and pulls a card out of her wallet, right? And she says like, oh, well, I'm part of the official Hima-Ten fan club, and I'm member number 1. As she just holds up this card, and like she's got this big expression on her face, and she's like, hey, I'm a Hima head. And Ymor's like, what is that? I love this. And she's like, hey, it's like means I can't get her out of my head. It's like what all of her fans are called. And he's like, okay, so in other words, that makes you a huge fan of Yoshino. And she's like, hey, I comment on all of her posts and I buy every magazine that covers her line. Like, whenever he were in transferred, like, I fainted and had to leave the school early that day, right? And she's like, hey, and when I commented on one of her food posts a while ago, she even liked it. As we see that she was the one who made the food post just saying like, hey, that kind of food would make me want to fall for the chef. And gosh, it's honestly really cool because I remember the chapter and like all of us were like, oh yeah, that's sort of like going to push Himari and Iomori closer together pretty much. So it's just really funny to sort of see all this happening here and then like, hey, it was Sumire who did that the entire time, right? But she pretty much just says like, hey, my own personal goddess was like talking directly to me, and like no true fan could have kept their cool. And she's like, hey, don't make me remember all of this, like I was just content watching from afar, right? And Ymor's like, hey, okay, I see. And she's like, hey, okay, now what about you? You're a stalker and I know it, confess your sins to me, pretty much, right? He's like, misunderstanding, don't you know? And eventually, through some means of whatever, we see that Sumire ends up pretty much laying on Iomori's chest as the two of them are laying on the ground together, right? And of course, who would round the corner in this moment but Himari? And she's like, what are the two of you doing? And she's like, hey, explain this to me now. And I love Iomori's narration. Just like, oh boy, how did things end up like this? And that's where we end this chapter of Hima-Ten. This chapter was so funny. I loved being introduced to Sumire, pretty much understanding her whole thing of like, hey, I can be a little standoffish, but that's just because I love Yoshino so incredibly much. I thought it was a really cool sort of aspect to the chapter, and yeah, I absolutely love this chapter of Hima-Ten, right? Ultimate X's Kyoshi, pretty much to sum it up quickly, is the whole idea of like, hey, Sosuke and Kurose Sada are fighting with each other, right? Pretty much now that Sosuke's learned about like, hey, I can pretty much boil the water and fire at Sada, he's doing all of that, and ends up missing a shot, but pretty much unices all of the town around him, pretty much saving all of the people, pretty much, right? Kurose Sada pretty much goes through and like starts to attack him some more and just says like, hey, you've got spunk, fine then, I'll let you sample the despair that comes of challenging a demon lord. And he's just like, hey, think about this, a mere negative 460 Fahrenheit. That's all it takes to reach absolute zero in the human world. And what do you know what absolute zero in the demon world is? Oh, well, it's negative 868 Fahrenheit. Don't underestimate the ice prison of the demon world. As pretty much we just see that he's making the air so cold it's being really hard for Sosuke to even move, and we pretty much see that he comes through and freezes up Sosuke's arm in this moment to a point where Sosuke may never be able to use it again. He's like, hey, now you can no longer use your crest exorcism, all this various stuff. But Sosuke just says like, hey, well, too bad, I have another arm with another crest exorcism on it, right? He goes through, uses a move called Orochi, goes through, and pretty much melts all the ice off of his other arm, right? But Sada just is like, hey, melting the ice won't do you any good. My attack is a glacial assault from the demon world. It doesn't just freeze things, it destroys them from the inside out. Your left arm is nothing but dead meat. He's like, hey, just try and move it. It'll roll on fall off soon enough. And Sosuke's like, damn it, this isn't good at all, right? As pretty much we just see that Sada's like, hey, I will clad you and the city eternally encased in silver ice, pretty much, right? Using his power, freezing all of the area of the playground equipment, destroying it here at the point. And Sosuke just is like, oh, you think this is enough to stop me? I knew exercising you was was going to come at some sort of cost to me, right? As we see that he reaches down to his arm that's busted and picks it up with his other arm and raises it up to put his pretty much fingers in a bullet position and just is like, hey, you can have my left arm. And he just thinks like, hey, I'm going to put to use everything I've endured so far into this one attack. And so I was like, oh, it's a pointless struggle. And he's like, yeah, I'm good at those. As he fires off a perfect blue Ultra Leviathan, as Kurosei-Sada uses a Icy Purgatory Palm. The two of them both fire their moves at each other, and Sosuke just thinks like, hey, he's so powerful I can't give an inch or he'll wipe me out. But I refuse to budge. I will protect everyone. If one arm isn't enough, I'll give him everything. And he just remembers like, hey, Kyoshi Harai trusted me with all of this. As Sada's like, oh wait, what is this? Is his power growing? As we see that Sosuke goes through and opens up his hands. He's like, hey, I won't let him down, even if it kills me. As we see that he summons an orb of water and shoots out a Jabberwocky out of it, pretty much just going through in the Kamehameha pose and just taking out and firing off this massive bridge of water at Sada, right? And Sada's like, oh, look at that. You never stood a chance. As we see that, oh no, he looks relatively fine, as Sosuke collapses onto the ground. He's like, hey, do you fancy yourself a martyr? Huh, you hot-headed bastard. As we then see that his body crumbles apart in the moment as Sosuke falls to the ground unconscious. As we get narration saying like, hey, Sosuke Hijuji versus the third demon lord Kurosei-Sada. The winner is Sosuke. And that is where we end this chapter of Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi. Damn, this was such a good chapter, man. I loved going through, seeing Sosuke do all of his stuff. Just an absolutely amazing chapter for sure. Next up is Akane Banashi, and hey, we get a color page for Akane Banashi this week. It's pretty cool. We see it has Hikaru, Akane, and Karashi on it. And I'm going to be real, I never realized that Hikaru's hair was like a bluish silver. I never knew that, right? But pretty much this entire chapter is about, I know we're sort of running late on time, so I sort of want to just speed through this chapter a little bit. Pretty much this chapter is all about like, hey, Akane is going through and is trying to prepare for the Zunin Prize event. Pretty much we see that she is telling the sort of like comedy story that we saw that Shomei was telling a few times ago, and that she's also trying to time herself for it. We see that Tyson is pretty much being her helper here in the moment, going through and timing her for it. And she's like, hey, like, she was right about being dead serious about all of this, but she isn't doing so well. Like, hey, she isn't pretty much keeping to the timeline, pretty much, right? And she's like, hey, she's supposed to be saying this line at 1:37. Well, instead, she's saying it at 1:46, right? As Tyson pretty much just thinks like, hey, I mean, look at her. She's doing just so absolutely well. Like, she's able to get so many high laughs out of the audience, and she's just doing a really good job of this, even though Akane doesn't feel like that she's doing such a good job herself, pretty much, right? As Tyson just is like, hey, I pretty much accept what she's doing, and I want to pretty much help her out. My master Tyson Arakawa acknowledges her talent. So she needs to be good enough to pretty much be able to say that she's gotten a recommendation from him, pretty much, right? As Tyson pretty much just says, like, hey, I want to support her, but she did say that her sort of plan is to perform Shiwaya like today in order to win the Zunin Prize. And she was like, hey, it's well suited to a contest, and because it's funny, it'll hit well with all the audiences. I'm guessing that she's gonna crush it. As we then cut to the final scene of this chapter, where we see Akane is meeting with her, of course, her mastery show, and eventually we just see that Akane's like, hey, what is that supposed to mean? As we see Isho just saying like, oh, exactly what it sounded like. Oh, you want to compete for the Zunin Prize? Oh, then no laughing. Show that you can win without making the audience laugh. And Akane has almost gone ghostly white from hearing this. And man, I can't wait to see where this is going to go. Akane Banashi proves that it's one of Shonen Jump's best manga time after time, as we just get this really awesome moment just understanding like, hey, Akane now has to win this competition, by pretty much doing it on hard mode like normal, and I honestly can't wait till we see what Akane's sort of serious story that she's going to be telling here is, and how it's going to work into the general idea. Because we have to remember, the Zunin Prize is also a, I don't think it's a comedy Rakugo thing, but it's still like one of these things to pretty much find out who the best Futatsume is currently, right? So it's going to be a big deal seeing, and hey, will Shomei actually give her to support a teacher to God of Death? It's going to be very interesting. Good chapter of Akane Banashi for sure. Blue Box is up next, and simply put, it is just a date chapter between both Taiki and Chinatsu. It has been 1 year since they started dating, and they're going around pretty much to all of this various stuff, checking it out. We see that, like, hey, yo, look at that, Chinatsu's wearing this really nice knitted dress, and pretty much, oh, look at that, it's got the shoulders exposed. And Taiki's very like, oh no, what is all of this, pretty much, right? They go around and do a bunch of shopping for Chinatsu's new apartment, and we even just see that they go out and eat some food. And Chinatsu takes a picture of Taiki and just is like, oh, it feels like pure happiness is right in front of me, pretty much. And Taiki's like, hey, then I'll do you one better, and gets a picture of both of them sitting together eating some food, right? And he's like, hey, let's take pics at all sorts of other places too, like the amusement park and the museum and all that other various stuff, right? And then she's like, hey, we'll do all of this various other stuff. And he even says, like, hey, are you going to get your license soon? And Chinatsu said she is, right? And she's just like, hey, since I'll be graduating and moving out soon, I know we'll be farther apart physically than we ever were before. But whether I'm facing you like this, or standing beside you, or there with you emotionally over the internet, I'm not going anywhere. So you, stay with me too, Taiki. And Taiki's like, oh, Chinatsu, you're no fair. I wanted to tell you that. A really nice moment, as pretty much we see the end of the chapters. They finish up their meal pretty much, and oh no, Chinatsu is missing one of her bags, and Taiki's like, hey, then let's go find it. Really, really cute chapter, Blue Box. I know I sort of really boys through it, but it was such a nice chapter through and through. I love Blue Box. It always just makes my heart feel nice and warm, you know what I'm saying? The Elusive Samurai was a fine chapter, pretty much just like, hey, we get reintroduced, or not really reintroduced, we get really introduced to this character named, oh gosh, where is he? His name is, or yeah, their name is, oh god, does it say it anywhere? We get introduced to this character who's pretty much just like this attendant to like Takayuji pretty much, and it seems like they're pretty much going to be corrupting Takayuji subtly to make the whole idea of like, hey, their name is Aiba Myozurumaru. We see that their whole idea is like they're trying to slowly corrupt Takayuji to pretty much get the Mornau brothers killed off, or the Kono brothers, whatever they're called. I don't really care for this chapter. Pretty much you're just trying to persuade him against them. We see the whole thing is like, oh hey, Mornau's like, hey, he's my brother pretty much. I'm going to protect Takayuji to the end. And Takayuji's like, oh, Mornau's no good then. Let's get him out of here pretty much. And that's where we end this chapter of the Elusive Samurai. It was fine. It was simple as that, right? And then the final chapter we have to talk about this week, of course, the 14th series I read in Weekly Shonen Jump, was none other than Witch Watch chapter number 200. As this whole chapter is, I love this chapter's chapter title. It is titled, if I can go and find it, That Time My Childhood Friend Had Trouble Getting 34 Spells Back, But They All Sucked. As we pretty much feel like, hey, Nico senses some magic butterflies as they're sort of walking around town, and we see that, like, oh no, this one guy in this very interesting piece of clothing is pretty much took all of these magic butterflies, pretty much, right? And like, hey, he's got 34 of them in total. And Morito's like, hey, you're a magic user, give Nico back to butterflies. And the guy's like, no, I don't want to do that, pretty much. It's my magic now. They came to me. I own all of this stuff, right? So he goes through, it looks like there's about to be a little bit of a battle, as he gets ready and uses the Enlogin spell on his arm to pretty much go through and act like Luffy, go through and punch Morito. He hits Morito, and Morito's like, oh, that's right. That just extends the arm, it doesn't really add any muscle or anything, right? This guy also uses the Bounce Spring spell, along with a lot of the other spells, and everybody's like, oh, wait a second. All of these spells just suck pretty much, right? We see he uses the Cube spell and a bunch of these other ones, eventually takes off his mask, and oh no, he just looks like some random guy walking around here. We see that he has also used the Pulp Fashion spell on himself. Hey, this spell's recently shown off in the anime. Look at that, it's pretty cool. Like, hey, callbacks pretty much, right? And pretty much this guy's like, hey, ever since I was a kid, I've always been obsessed with magic. Whenever a butterfly came to me, I was just so happy. It ended up being the Growant spell, which pretty much grew all of my desires, so I wanted to get even more magic, right? Pretty much Nico goes through and takes all 34 butterflies, right? And Morito sort of does the math, thinking like, oh, that should be another 3 years from where she is now. She's going to hit her growth spurt, pretty much, right? We see that Nico goes through, gets all of these memories back associated with these butterflies, and oh, look at that. She's now 14 years old. And Morito's like, oh, look at that, pretty much, right? And we also see that Morito's like, hey, look at that. It's incredible, Nico. You're 14 now. You're an 8th grader. Man, kids grow up so fast. Morito, this is not how having a child actually works. You do not grow 3 years in an instant, pretty much, right? But pretty much, she's like, oh, a middle schooler, huh? I'm a 2nd year, right? As she just looks over at Morito and just thinks like, oh, look at that. As we see that her eyes are like going to little hearts, she's like, oh no, ba-dump, and her heart starts beating as she's like, oh, aha, and Morito's like, hey, look, you grew up so much fast, all of your clothes are currently too small for you. Pretty much just like having fun, poking fun, pretty much. And Nico's like, hey, don't do all of that. It ends up casting the Bounce Spring spell on Morito, making him fly up into the air. She's like, oh, look at that. You're such a jerk, Morito. I'm not a little girl anymore. Alright, this is a little bit of an area I was getting concerned for. It's the point where Nico is old enough to sort of realize she has these feelings, but is sort of not young enough, or is not old enough to also act on them without making it very, very weird. Yeah, we're going to have to see how this sort of works out for a little while, but also, like, hey, how's this going to affect her relationship with Chami and all this other stuff, being like, hey, she was in 5th grade, she no longer is. I can't wait till we get introduced to the next chapter into Nico's 8th grade class, right? But that's where we end off these, all of them. Yeah, it's Witch Watch. That's all the manga chapters this week. I thought there was more to say, but there really particularly wasn't. But yeah, that's all of the manga chapters we have this week. So yeah, let's just go and get them all ranked. So let me copy all of these over here. And as I mentioned here a second ago, there's a very logical way for how I want to rank these. First off, we're going to be putting Nice, Pure Eye, Prison on the bottom. Wasn't a funny chapter, wasn't a good chapter, I will say, pretty much, right? Probably put Sid Craft right above it, if I could spell Sid Craft, and then right above it, put the Elusive Samurai. I think that's honestly a fine ranking for my bottom 3. Honestly, we'll probably put Kill, no, we will put Embers right above that, Kill Blue, and then we will put it on pause for a second, because I legitimately don't know what I want to put next. So, okay, so now we have Hima-Ten, Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi, Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, Akane Banashi, Starve Beethoven, Witch Watch, and Blue Box left to do. So, with all of this, what was I think my favorite chapter was Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi this week. I loved Sosuke's moment going through, seeing him do all this stuff. And in that same vein, Kagurabachi was just such an excellent chapter through and through. Really enjoyed it. No, I think I'm going to put Kagurabachi 3rd, actually. No, we're going to be putting, we're going to put Kagurabachi 3rd. Right beneath it, we're going to put Ichi the Witch, if I could spell Ichi the Witch. And then in the 2nd position, we are going to put Hima-Ten, because I thought that chapter was really, really funny. Okay, so that's the top 4 done, which means we have Akane Banashi, One Piece, Star, Beethoven, Witch Watch, and Blue Box left. So we're going to put Blue Box next, and then Star of Beethoven, Starve Beethoven, Akane Banashi. And then we have Witch Watch and One Piece left. We will put we'll actually put Witch Watch on the bottom, Witch Watch, and then One Piece. Honestly, a very simple ranking this week. Again, Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi, Hima-Ten, Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, Blue Box, Star Beethoven, Akane Banashi, One Piece, Witch Watch, Kill Blue, Embers, The Elusive Samurai, Sid Craft, and Nice Prison. And as far as the character of the week goes, gosh, there were some good characters this week. I mean, Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi had Sosuke, Hima-Ten had Sumire, right? Just make sure I'm spelling that right, just to like, hey, for the whole point of if I pick this character, which I probably will. I really like Sumire's introduction. Yeah, it's Sumire Terasaka. So let me go back over, navigate over. So Terasaka. Kagurabachi, honestly, yeah, here I liked all of Hirohiko's stuff. I think Hirohiko pulled off some nice moves, but yeah, just going through, I don't really think there's anybody else I could give it to but Sumire. I just thought she just was such a cool introduction that happened. So yeah, we'll put Sumire from Hima-Ten as the character of the week this week. All right. I guess I may have to go through here and we'll copy down to Hima-Ten right below it. Or, yeah, we'll just do it like that. That works. But yeah, for all that out of the way, that's the video here pretty much, right? So again, just going through all the final rankings, we have Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi, or let's do it this way. For Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 22 of 20, or no, for Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 22-23 of 2025, favorite chapters: Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi, Hima-Ten, Kagurabachi, Ichiro Witch, Blue Box, Star Beethoven, Akane Banashi, One Piece, Witch Watch, Kill Blue, Embers, The Elusive Samurai, Sidcraft, and Knife's Prison, and Sumire Terasaka, the new character from Hima-Ten, ended up getting my character of the week. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, of course, on Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 22-23 of 2025, hey, thank you guys so much for watching. And I know this has been a long one. We are currently just over an hour in the recording, so yeah, it's been a long one for sure. But if you guys enjoy it, I've done plenty of other videos on Weekly Shonen Jump here in the past. There will be a playlist link down in the description box down below, and also on the end card of this YouTube video. And hey, if you guys are listening to this on a podcasting platform, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about a bunch of different anime and manga series, so go check out all of that there. Again, like I talk about Kagurabachi, the anime of Witch Watch, and all this, our various stuff on the YouTube channel. And hey, if you're on the YouTube channel, I put this show up on a podcast on podcasting platforms. Like, hey, if you want to hear my thoughts on Apple Podcast, or want to hear this on Apple Podcast, go over and listen to it there. Podbean, go do it there. All of the various places. But yeah, with all that out of the way, thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 22-23 of 2025. And I'll see you guys again in 2 weeks for issue number 24 of 2025. It is going to be a long wait to wait for some manga chapters again, but I think we had a few good ones this week. And yeah, Sumire, I really liked your character this week in Hima-Ten. But yeah, with all of that out of the way, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time for, yeah, Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 24 of 2025. This is Glowplasma 231, signing out.